Lena, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I
No.
appreciate it. Let me just start by saying Flora and Ulysses, I had so much fun. It
I'm so glad.
it 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 has a little bit of everything in it, and I don't think I was necessarily expecting that. I was expecting a super squirrel and a very, very sassy girl, and there
Yeah.
was so much more than that.
I'm so glad. That's fantastic.
The first thing I really want to talk about, because I'm one of those kind of nerdy guys that you guys were talking about in the junket. How fun was it to put so many nods to other things in the film? We talked about DuckTales, we talked about Marvel, DC, Buffy the Vampires. I mean, so much.
I feel like that was just something that would just make me excited all day long. And so whenever I had an opportunity, because like for me, I'm just kind of, I don't know, obsessive or just really excited about things. So I'm on this project for the year and a half or however 2 years or whatever it is. Like you just want to keep adding more to it. And so at some point you're like, okay, well, everything else is going through, like, let's add things in the background, let's add little things that'll just make me happy when I watch it again. And so there was a lot of that, and I just kind of liked making things, I don't know, richer and fun. And I had told Disney I wanted to make this feel like it was a live action Pixar movie. And they're so
Oh,
good at putting like homages and references. And so that was kind of an inspiration for why I started pursuing that angle and having fun with it.
because usually you get to see a little bit of Disney Easter eggs here and there, but I mean, you had DC references, you had all kinds of things from wide array, and it surprised me, and I liked it. I enjoyed it.
I'm glad.
Other thing I really enjoyed was your amazing cast that you had. I can't think of a better group of people for this film. Specifically, can you tell me what about Matilda Lawler and her chops?
God, that girl is going to win an Oscar one day. Emily Schwaber, who's our casting director, led the effort and ultimately found her. We looked at over 1,000 girls, and we just could not find our Flora. Like, you need somebody who has that sort of like wit to her and who can be like mature and say things, but you actually believe she knows what she's saying. And then who's also vulnerable. I mean, like, she's a 10-year-old girl and who can do that sort of like dry humor. And she was able to pull all of that off, and you believed it. And she brought that sort of like realness to everything she does. And she is just amazing. She came from Broadway, and she girl knows what she's doing. Like she made sure that I only worked with her the same way I would with adult actors, and it makes sense because she has the same chops.
Very, very good. The other thing that really surprised me about the film is the balance of themes that you have in there. You have adults that are unfulfilled by their current jobs via writer's block, or he can't necessarily get his books. You have them dealing with their separation. You have Flora dealing with the separation, a superhero squirrel, and an evil cat. Uh, how did you balance all of this out and be able to wrap it all up into a nice, fun film?
I think we just tried to take everything and ground it as much as possible. Like even the idea, having a superhero, like we made sure to not make him cartoony. He doesn't talk, he doesn't do any of those sorts of things, but he is a superhero in his own right. And he's a superhero also because of what how he brings a family together and how he gets them to see the world in a new way. But then he's also legit badass. So it was just making sure that through everything that there was like a realism. Like we didn't shy away from real life issues and things that people are actually dealing with, because those are the sorts of people who feel like they need superheroes the most. And we thought it'd be cool to tell a story. I was like, if we could show them that you don't need a superhero to come and change everything for you, you need a superhero to show you how to see it different.
I completely agree with you. Unfortunately, it's a situation that I had to put my daughter through a couple years ago. So this film really, really touched us, close to our heart because we went through it.
Right.
One of my favorite moments in the film is after the donut shop fiasco when he hits that superhero pose. I pointed that like that Leo meme. I was like, "Oh, superhero pose for the squirrel."
Nice.
I thought that was great. Can you tell me about that action sequence? There was just so much going on. How was filming that? What was practical? What was afterwards?
Um, yeah, that sequence was kinds of nuts. There was a lot. Let's see, donuts flying were 50% practical, 50% CGI. CGI was mostly like things, donuts flying in the background. But for instance, we had a stand. We had a lot of special effects happening. We had a stand full of donuts, and when you press the button, they'd all like fly off. But then the donuts weren't hitting people the way that I really wanted them to. So at some point, it was me throwing donuts, and I was like, no, more frosting on that donut, put more frosting. And I'd be like, okay, if I aim it right, I can get Kate McCucci right in her face. And then it would be like, I'd have a gray stuffy on a stick, and I would be wandering through the diner, and so that all the extras and everything could see where he was flying, and like how he'd like hit the glass and things like that. So it was a combination of, real life reactions with what would ultimately become CGI. And like, for instance, the glass did break, the car did get imploded, but the donut that fell down into it was CGI.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is it like for you to put together this film using little dummies and dolls and references, but then to go back and to see the final product?
Yeah, I mean, this was my first time doing a CGI movie, so the CGI department, Daryl Sawchek, who was the head of it, like was really good about kind of acclimating me to all those things with puppets, this and that. But it's weird because the whole time you're watching like a car implode with no donut, or like, glass break, but there's nothing coming out of it. There's no Ulysses. So you just kind of have to imagine it as you go.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly the visual effects companies shows you one that has like, an animated version, and it's just a entirely different experience, which is actually good because we had to make the film so that it could run even without Ulysses, if that makes sense. Like at our test screenings, they watched it without Ulysses, and so it had to hold its weight even without Ulysses, which meant when Ulysses actually came, he just could add like so much more.
What was different for you, being that this was your first film like that? Any challenges, anything unexpected that you worked through?
Yeah, I mean, being on post on a movie for a year is craziness. But it really, I think working within the studio system was the biggest thing, because they really, want to make sure their quality control, and there's certain things they're looking for. But we also our team had a very strong sense of kind of the vision and the flavor of this movie. So there was a lot of debates, like heated debates back and forth, but ultimately it would push us to rise to something that fit what we were looking for, but also made them happy too, which was which actually ended up being a very cool dynamic.
Awesome. In your opinion, what makes the team of Flora and Ulysses so special?
I think it's a very big-hearted team. We had Gil Netter, who has done things like Life of Pi and The Blind Side and things like that. Everything he does is because he's a big-hearted guy. Brad Copeland has this, as Kate DiCamillo saying, but he has a capacious heart. That's what they say in Flora and Ulysses. But he's just super witty. And so all of us really believed in this project, and we did nothing but this project night and day for the entire time that we on it. Like, we fought for it because we believed in it so much. And so when you want a message to get out there so much, you have to make sure you're fighting for the story. You're fighting to make the story good. You're fighting to make it as funny as possible so people will watch it, because you want eyes to see that. So it was just putting all of ourselves into it.
The film had an amazing balance, and I'm going to share with you my favorite scene is Ulysses is holding the boy, and then makes the decision the Pop-Tart is more important. That was my favorite laugh out moment. What was your favorite moment in the film?
Oh, I am a big fan of the door lock sequence. It is one way. I feel like I've done that back and forth with like my dad.
My final question to you is, what do you hope families take away from Flora and Ulysses?
I hope people, especially people who've been kind of rocked by anything that's happened to them this year or in the past, have get some inspiration to try to see the world with new eyes.
In the view of a super heroic squirrel.
Yes, absolutely.
Lena, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I really appreciate it. Congratulations on the film. It's laugh out loud funny, and I think everyone's going to enjoy it. I think they're going to be surprised by it.
I hope so. Thank you.
Have a good one.
All right, you too.